My hands trembled as I watched my beautiful granddaughter Ashley walk down the aisle at the Rosewood Country Club in Atlanta. For 43 years, I'd kept this secret buried deep inside me, watching as my daughter Jennifer raised her child, thinking Robert was the father. But I knew the truth. I knew who really fathered Ashley, and it wasn't the man proudly walking her down that aisle in his $3,000 tuxedo. When Ashley reached me in the front pew, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I leaned in and whispered those words that would change our family forever. The gasps that followed were like dominoes falling through the entire church. By midnight, half of Atlanta knew the truth, and the $7 million wedding had descended into absolute chaos. My daughter wasn't speaking to me. My granddaughter was locked in the bridal suite. And the man who thought he was her father for 26 years, he was about to learn what happens when you mess with a Southern grandma who's been waiting decades for justice. I wasn't always Mary Wilson, the 71-year-old grandmother who just blew up her granddaughter's wedding at the most exclusive venue in Atlanta. 45 years ago, I was just Mary Cooper, a 26-year-old receptionist at Harrison Financial Group, struggling to make ends meet after my husband died in Vietnam. Robert Harrison was my boss, tall, commanding, and married with 3 children. Owner of one of the biggest financial firms in Georgia, with a mansion in Buckhead and a summer home in the Hamptons. His wife, Caroline, was old Atlanta money. Her daddy owned half the real estate downtown. Everyone respected the Harrisons, pillars of their Baptist church, and fixtures at every charity gala from here to Savannah. "Mary, could you stay late tonight?" Robert would ask, his southern drawl thick as honey. "These quarterly reports won't review themselves." I needed that job. My landlord was threatening eviction, and my pantry was emptier than a church on Super Bowl Sunday. So I stayed late, night after night. It started innocently, his hand lingering on mine as I passed him coffee. Then came the compliments, the gifts, a promotion to executive assistant with double my salary, a fancy apartment in Midtown where the rent was mysteriously taken care of. "You deserve it, darlin'," he'd say. "You work harder than anyone." I told myself it was just kindness, until that company retreat in Savannah. When he knocked on my hotel room door at midnight, bourbon on his breath. "Caroline doesn't understand me," he whispered. "Not like you do." I was young, vulnerable, and foolish. Our affair lasted almost 2 years. I convinced myself I was in love, that someday he'd leave Caroline for me. Every time he said, "Just a little longer, sugar, I can't break up my family right now," I believed him. Then I, surprised, got pregnant. When I told Robert, his face changed from charming Southern gentleman to cold businessman in a heartbeat. "Are you sure it's mine?" he asked, like I was some kind of tramp. "You know damn well it is," I said, my hands confidently, protectively over my still flat stomach. His solution came the next day. $10,000 cash in an envelope, a one-way ticket to California, and a typed letter of resignation with my forged signature. "This is best for everyone," he said, not meeting his eyes. "Start fresh somewhere new. The baby deserves that." I took the money but tore up the ticket. Instead, I moved to Macon, just far enough from Atlanta to avoid running into the Harrisons, but close enough that my child would still be raised in Georgia soil. When Jennifer was born, I put my cousin William's name on the birth certificate. He'd agreed to help, knowing the truth but grateful, never judging me for it. Jennifer grew up thinking her daddy had died before she was born, a simpler pain than the complicated truth. I worked 3 jobs, put myself through night school, and eventually opened my own small accounting firm. My Jennifer never wanted for anything essential. Even if we couldn't afford the country club memberships and private schools Robert's legitimate children enjoyed. I watched from afar as Robert's empire grew. His oldest son joined the family business. His daughters married into prominent families. His face appeared in the Atlanta Business Chronicle as Businessman of the Year. All while my Jennifer worked weekends at Walmart to save for community college. I told myself the past was buried, that Jennifer, hopeful, never needed to know. Then, 26 years ago, my Jennifer met a handsome young financial analyst at a networking event in Atlanta. His name? Robert Harrison Jr. Her half-brother, though neither of them knew it. When she brought him home and introduced us, I nearly collapsed right there on my living room carpet. "Mom, this is Bobby," Jennifer said, beaming. "We're getting married." Y'all can imagine what that felt like. My daughter was engaged to her half-brother, and I was desperate, the only person in the world who knew it. I still remember how the Georgia summer heat pressed against my skin as I drove to Robert Harrison's office the next morning. The air conditioning in my 10-year-old Ford barely worked, and sweat trickled down my back as I rehearsed what I'd say to the man I hadn't spoken to in 28 years. Harrison Financial Group had expanded since my time there. Now it occupied the top 5 floors of a gleaming glass tower in downtown Atlanta. The lobby alone screamed money, with marble floors and a security desk where a guard looked me up and down, taking in my Ross Dress for Less pantsuit. "I need to see Robert Harrison," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's a personal matter." "Do you have an appointment, ma'am?" The guard's tone made it clear he already knew the answer. "No, but he'll want to see me. Tell him Mary Cooper is here." 20 minutes and desperate, 3 increasingly desperate pleas later, I was escorted to the top floor. Robert's executive assistant, young, blonde, wearing designer clothes that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage, eyed me nervous, suspiciously. "Mr. Harrison has exactly 10 minutes before his next meeting," she said, opening his office door. Robert hadn't changed much. More silver in his hair, more weight around his middle, but still that same commanding presence. He stood behind a desk the size of my dining room table, Atlanta's skyline spread out behind him. "Mary," he said, his face unreadable, "this is unexpected." "We have a situation, Robert," I said, declining to sit in the visitor's chair he gestured toward. "Our daughter is engaged to your son." The fearful color drained from his face. For a moment, I thought he might pass out. "That's impossible," he whispered. "Jennifer Cooper is engaged to Robert Harrison Jr. They met at some financial mixer last month." Robert sank into his chair, loosening his tie. "Jesus Christ." "Yeah," I said. "That about sums it up." "They can't get married," he said, stating the obvious. It's illegal, immoral, a genetic disaster waiting to happen. Pick your poison, Robert." He pressed a button on his desk. "Cancel my next appointment, Brittany, and hold all calls." For the next hour, we talked strategy. I insisted we tell them the truth, but Robert, angry, wouldn't hear of it. "It would destroy my family, my reputation, everything I've built," he argued, pacing the office, nervous like a caged animal. "Caroline would leave me. My other children would never speak to me again. And my daughter is supposed to what? Just accept that she can't marry the man she loves with angry explanation?" Robert stopped pacing, his businessman's mind clearly formulating a plan. "Bobby's been asking to head up our West Coast office," he said slowly. I'll fast-track that. Send him to San Francisco next week. Make it so attractive he can't refuse. And break my daughter's heart in the process, I said bitterly. It's better than the alternative. He opened a drawer, pulled out a checkbook. Aggressive. How much do you need? The aggressive rage that had been simmering for almost 3 decades boiled over. I don't want your damn money, Robert. I want you to do the hopeful thing for once in your miserable life. He wrote the check anyway, sliding it across the desk. $100,000. For Jennifer, he said, to help her adjust. I left the check on his desk, but as I reached the door, he spoke again. Mary, wait. If this gets out, if anyone finds out about Jennifer. The fearful threat hung in the air between us. Don't worry, Robert, I said coldly. Your precious reputation is safe. I've kept your secret this long. What's a few more decades? But walking out of that office, I made myself a promise. Someday, somehow, the truth would come out. Robert Harrison wouldn't get away with this forever. 2 weeks later, Jennifer called me, sobbing so hard I could barely understand her. Bobby's moving to California, she hiccuped. Says it's an amazing career opportunity he can't pass up. He thinks we should break up. Long distance never works, he said. I held the phone tight, my angry knuckles white. I'm so sorry, baby. He said his dad pulled strings to get him this position. It's what he's always wanted. Robert had played his son like a fiddle, dangling career advancement to separate him from Jennifer. The man was nothing if not serious, effective. Jennifer was devastated, but eventually she moved on. 6 months later, she met Michael Taylor at a friend's backyard barbecue in Macon. He wasn't from money, just a hard-working construction foreman with a good heart and steady hands. Within a year, they were married. When Jennifer told me she was pregnant, I cried happy tears of relief. My grandchild wouldn't carry Harrison blood on both sides. At least, that's what I hoped at the time. 8 months after Jennifer's wedding to Michael, my granddaughter Ashley came into the world. 7 pounds, 2 ounces of happy joy with Jennifer's dimples and Michael's dark hair. As I held that perfect baby in the Macon Memorial Hospital, I silently thanked God that the hopeful Harrison nightmare was behind us. For 25 years, life was blissfully normal. Michael's construction business grew steadily. Jennifer became an elementary school teacher. They bought a modest 4-bedroom in a good school district. Ashley grew into a proud, beautiful young woman who got a full scholarship to Emory University in Atlanta. I should have known our peaceful existence was too good to last. It was Ashley's senior year at Emory when the text from Jennifer appeared on my phone. Mom, you won't believe who Ashley's dating. A boy from one of Atlanta's oldest families. His name is Tyler Harrison. His grandfather owns half of downtown? My coffee mug shattered on my kitchen floor. Tyler Harrison, Robert's grandson from his oldest legitimate son? Ashley was dating her cousin, and desperate, nobody knew it but me. History repeating itself in the cruelest way possible. This time, I couldn't go to Robert. He'd had a stroke 3 years earlier, according to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and his oldest son, Robert III, had taken over the family business. But the relationship between Ashley and Tyler wasn't as serious as Jennifer and Bobby's had been. I told myself it would, hopeful, fizzle out naturally. I was sad. 2 years later, Ashley called me, screaming with excitement. Grandma, Tyler proposed. We're getting married at the Rosewood Country Club next spring. The Rosewood, the Harrison family's club for generations, where Robert and Caroline had celebrated their 50th anniversary just last year, according to the society pages I still scoured for mentions of them. That's wonderful, sweetheart, I managed, while my heart threatened to burst from my chest. And Grandma? Tyler's grandfather insists on paying for everything, says it's tradition in their family. Can you believe it? We're talking at least $100,000. Robert was paying for his great-granddaughter's wedding to her own cousin. The irony would be laughable if it weren't so tragic. Once again, I found myself driving to Atlanta, this time to the sprawling Harrison estate in Buckhead. The stroke had left Robert partially paralyzed, but Caroline's sister told me he still insisted on spending Tuesday afternoons alone in his study, reviewing investment reports. The housekeeper recognized my name when I arrived, not as Mary Cooper, Robert's former mistress, but as Mary Wilson, grandmother of the bride-to-be. "Mr. Harrison is in his study," she said, leading me through the mansion that could have swallowed my house 10 times over. "He'll be so pleased to meet Ashley's grandmother." Robert looked sad in his wheelchair, a blanket over his legs, despite the warm September day. But his eyes, those calculating eyes, were as sharp as ever when they landed on me. "Leave us," he told the housekeeper, who closed the heavy oak door behind her. "Hello, Robert," I said, taking a seat across from him. "It's been a long time." "Mary Cooper," he said, his speech slightly slurred from the stroke. "Still causing trouble after all these years." "It's Mary Wilson now, and I'm not the one causing trouble. Your grandson is engaged to my granddaughter, our granddaughter." Understanding dawned slowly on his face. "Ashley is Jennifer's daughter." "Yes, and Jennifer is your daughter, which makes Ashley your granddaughter, who is now engaged to her first cousin." Robert closed his eyes, his right hand trembling on the armrest of his wheelchair. "Does anyone else know?" "That's always your first question, isn't it?" I said, angrily. "Who knows your precious secret?" "You don't understand what's at stake," he said, his voice stronger now. "The Harrison name. I don't give a damn about the Harrison name. I care about my granddaughter marrying her cousin." Robert wheeled himself to a cabinet, pulled out a tumbler and a bottle of bourbon. His hand shook as he poured. "We'll handle it the same way as before," he said, taking a long swallow. "I'll make sure Tyler gets an opportunity abroad, London perhaps, or Dubai. And break Ashley's heart the same way you broke Jennifer's? No, not this time. Then what do you propose?" His tone was patronizing, like I was still that naive receptionist from decades ago. "Tell them the truth, Robert, all of it." He laughed, a harsh sound. "Destroy 2 families? Reveal that the great Robert Harrison cheated on his wife? That would kill Caroline." "Caroline already knows," came a voice from the doorway. We both turned. Caroline Harrison stood there, elegant in her St. John knit suit, her silver hair perfectly coiffed. The housekeeper, anxiously, behind her. "I'm sorry, Mr. Harrison," the housekeeper stammered. "Mrs. Harrison insisted—" "Leave us," Caroline said, her voice like steel wrapped in silk. The door closed again. "Caroline," Robert began, but she silenced him with a raised hand. "I've known about you for 40 years, Mary," she said, taking a seat beside her husband. "Known about Jennifer. Confident, known about all of it." I stared at her, surprised. "You think a wife doesn't know when her husband is unfaithful? Especially one as careless as Robert." She patted his hand, but there was no warmth in the gesture. "I was raised to handle family matters privately." She turned to me. "Bradford followed you to Macon, reported when Jennifer was born. I've kept tabs on your daughter her entire life." The surprised room tilted slightly. "Fearful, you've been watching us for 43 years? Knowledge is power, Mary. I needed to know if you'd ever become a threat to my family." When Jennifer got engaged to Bobby, I began. I told Robert immediately, Caroline confirmed, suggested he offer Bobby the California position. The realization hit me like a slap. You orchestrated all of it. You knew they were half-siblings. Of course I did, and I protected both our families from scandal. You should be thanking me. I stood up, my legs shaking. Thanking you? You let my daughter fall in love with her brother. You broke her heart instead of telling the truth. And what would the truth have accomplished? Caroline asked, coldly. Besides destroying two families and traumatizing those children, sometimes mercy looks like cruelty, Mary. Robert watched our exchange like a tennis match, his stroke-weakened features showing something I'd never seen before, fear of his wife. And now Ashley and Tyler, I said, piecing it together. You know about them too. Tyler is my grandson, Caroline said simply. Of course I know who he's dating. When he brought Ashley to Sunday dinner last year, I recognized Jennifer's calm smile immediately. This has to stop, I insisted. We can't let them get married. They're blood relatives. First cousins once removed, technically, since Ashley is Jennifer's daughter and Jennifer and Tyler's father are half-siblings. That doesn't make it okay, I exploded. No, it doesn't, Caroline agreed, surprising me. Which is why I suggested to Robert that we should finally bring this all to light. Robert's tumbler hit the carpet, bourbon seeping into the Aubusson rug that probably cost more than my car. Caroline, no, we can't. It's time, Robert, she said firmly. I'm 74 years old. You're 76 and in poor health. I won't have this hanging over our grandchildren after we're gone. She turned to me. But it must be handled carefully, not some dramatic scene at the wedding. The wedding is in 3 weeks, I pointed out. How do you propose we handle this carefully in that time frame? Caroline stood, smoothing her skirt. Family dinner, here, tomorrow night. We'll invite Jennifer and Michael, Ashley and Tyler. You'll come as Ashley's grandmother. We'll tell them together. Just like that, pass the potatoes, and by the way, you're all related? I've had 4 decades to prepare for this conversation, Mary, Caroline said with a dignity I couldn't help but admire. Trust me when I say I know how to deliver difficult news. As I left the Harrison mansion that afternoon, I felt like I was floating above myself, watching someone else drive my sensible Camry back to Macon. Caroline had known all along. Every secret I thought I'd kept, every move I'd made to protect Jennifer had been observed and countered by this steel magnolia in designer clothes. The next evening, I arrived at the Harrison estate in my best dress, a navy blue number from Macy's that I'd bought for Jennifer's wedding 7 years ago. Jennifer and Michael were already there, looking uncomfortable amid the opulence of the Harrison home. Mom, can you believe this place? Jennifer whispered when I joined them in the vast, formal living room. Tyler's grandparents insisted on having us all over before the wedding. Isn't that sweet? Sweet wasn't the word I'd use. Ashley and Tyler arrived next, young and beautiful and painfully in love. Looking at them together, her with Jennifer's dimples, him with the Harrison jawline, the family resemblance was obvious once you knew to look for it. Caroline orchestrated the evening with the serious precision of a general. Cocktails in the living room, tour of the grounds, dinner in the formal dining room with china that had apparently been in her family since before the Civil War. It wasn't until dessert, a bourbon pecan pie that the housekeeper had slaved over all day, that Caroline delicately placed her fork down and said, "Serious, before we go any further with wedding plans, there's something you all need to know about our families." The look Robert gave his wife contained decades of fear, resentment, and, surprisingly, respect. I held my breath as Caroline began to speak, her voice calm as she unraveled 43 years of secrets. Caroline Harrison had spent a lifetime in Atlanta society, hosting charity galas and sitting on museum boards. She knew how to maintain composure through any crisis, and that evening, she delivered the news with the practiced calm of someone announcing a slight change to the dinner menu. In 1978, she began, her manicured hands folded neatly on the damask tablecloth. Robert had an affair with his executive assistant, Mary Cooper. All eyes turned to me. Jennifer's fork, surprised, clattered against her dessert plate. "Mom," she said, confusion creasing her forehead. "What is she talking about?" Caroline continued as if there had been no interruption. This affair resulted in a child, a daughter, born in Macon in 1979. The dining room went so quiet, I could hear the antique grandfather clock ticking in the hallway. Jennifer's face had gone fearful white. Tyler looked between his grandparents, surprised, bewildered. Michael reached for Jennifer's hand. "That daughter," Caroline said, looking directly at Jennifer, "was you." "No," Jennifer whispered, desperate, shaking her head. "My father was William Cooper. He died before I was born. Mom told me." "I lied," I said, my voice breaking. "William was my cousin. He agreed to let me put his name on your birth certificate." Ashley stood up so quickly her chair nearly toppled. "What the hell is going on?" Caroline raised a hand. "Please, Ashley, let me finish." She turned back to Jennifer. "Robert is your biological father, which makes Robert Jr., Bobby, your half-brother." "Bobby?" Jennifer repeated. "From college? The one who—" Her eyes widened as surprised understanding dawned. "Oh my God!" "We intervened when we discovered you two were dating. It wasn't appropriate for half-siblings to be romantically involved, though neither of you knew the relationship." "You broke us up?" Jennifer's voice angry rose. "Because we were related and you never told me?" Robert finally spoke, his stroke-slurred words heavy with sad resignation. "We thought it was for the best." "For the best?" Jennifer stood, sad, tears streaming down her face. "You let me believe I'd been dumped? You let me think there was angry something wrong with me?" Michael put an arm around his wife. "Jenny, breathe. Just breathe." Tyler had been silent. His Harrison eyes, so like Robert's, moving from person to person as he processed the implications. Now he turned to Ashley. "Wait, if Jennifer is my dad's half-sister, then you and I are first cousins once removed," sarcastically, helpfully. Ashley pushed away from the table. "This is insane! You're all insane!" She looked at me, betrayal raw on her face. "Grandma, tell them this isn't true." I couldn't speak around the lump in my throat. 43 years of secrets crushing my chest. "I have DNA tests," Caroline said, reaching for a folder beside her plate. Of course she did. Caroline Harrison left confident, nothing to chance. "If you need proof." Jennifer looked at Robert, really looked at him for the first time. I could see her cataloging the similarities, the shape of their eyes, the set of their jaws. "Did you know?" she asked me, her voice shaking. "When I brought Bobby home, did you know he was my brother?" I nodded, tears flowing freely now. "That's why I went to Robert. We had to stop it, but I didn't want to hurt you with the truth." "So you let me be hurt by a lie instead," Jennifer said, her voice hollow. Tyler had moved to Ashley, his arm around her waist. "This doesn't change how I feel about you," he murmured. "It should." Ashley pulled away from him. "We're related, Tyler. Do you understand what that means? For us? For kids we might have had?" The perfect Harrison facade was cracking. Caroline's composure slipped for the first time as she watched her grandson's heartbreaking in real time. "The risk of genetic issues is relatively small," she offered nervously. "First cousins once removed." "Stop saying that!" Ashley shouted. "I don't care what the technical term is. We can't get married now!" The wedding they'd spent months planning. The 7-tiered cake, the designer dress, the string quartet from Juilliard, all of it evaporating like morning dew under the harsh Georgia sun. Michael, who had been quiet through most of the revelation, finally spoke. "Jennifer isn't a Harrison," he said firmly. "She's a Taylor, my wife, Ashley's mother." He glared at Robert. "You may have contributed DNA, but you were never her father." For the first time, I felt a rush of gratitude for my son-in-law's steady presence. Robert seemed to shrink in his wheelchair. "I thought I was protecting everyone," he said, his voice barely audible. "You were protecting yourself," I corrected him. "Your reputation, your precious Harrison name." "Which Ashley almost shared," Caroline added quietly. "Can you imagine if we'd let them marry? If this had come out later, after they had children?" Ashley was sobbing now, her engagement ring catching the light from the crystal chandelier as she twisted it off her finger. "I can't be here right now," she said, dropping the ring on the table. "I need to go." Tyler reached for her. "Ashley, please." "Don't touch me," she recoiled. "Just don't." She fled the dining room. Jennifer and Michael immediately stood to follow. "Jennifer," Robert called, desperation in his voice. "Please, I want to explain." Jennifer turned back, angry, 43 years of unknowing rejection hardening her face. "I've lived my entire life without a father. I don't need one now." As they left, Caroline calmly folded her napkin. "Well," she said, "that went about as expected." Tyler stared at the abandoned engagement ring, his face a mask of shock. "You've known this my whole life?" he asked his grandmother. "That I have an aunt nobody told me about? That Ashley is my cousin?" "Family is complicated, dear," Caroline replied. "Family is a lie," Tyler corrected her, standing. "Everything about the Harrisons is a lie." He followed Ashley out, leaving me alone with Robert and Caroline in their perfect dining room, with their perfect pie going cold on Limo's china. "Was it worth it?" I asked Robert. "Keeping your secret all these years?" He didn't answer. Perhaps there was no answer that could justify 4 decades of deception. Caroline walked me to the door later, her spine straight despite everything that had happened. At the threshold, she surprised me by taking my hand. "For what it's worth," she said calmly, "I never blamed you. Robert was always susceptible, and you were young." I pulled my hand away. "I don't need your forgiveness, Caroline. I never did." "No," she agreed, "but perhaps we both need Jennifer's and Ashley's." As I drove back to Macon that night, I wondered if 43 years of secrets could ever truly be forgiven. Chapter 6: The Aftermath. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of tears and recriminations. The wedding was officially canceled, the 7-tier cake destined for the dumpster, the Vera Wang dress returned, the Rosewood Country Club deposit, $75,000, non-refundable, written off as a loss by the Harrisons. Ashley had moved back to Jennifer and Michael's house, sleeping in her childhood bedroom, surrounded by high school cheerleading trophies and Emory pennants. She wouldn't take my calls. Jennifer answered with one-word responses, her voice flat and distant. "Give her time," Michael advised when he called me after the first week. "She's processing a lot." "And Jennifer?" I asked, desperate for news of my daughter. Michael sighed heavily. "She's angry, Mary. At you, at Robert, hell, at the whole world right now. Finding out your entire identity is built on a lie isn't easy." "I was trying to protect her," I said, the same words I'd been repeating to myself like a mantra. "I know that. Deep down, she knows it too. But right now, she just needs space." Space. The polite Southern way of saying, "Stay away until we're ready to deal with you." I threw myself into cleaning my small ranch house, scrubbing baseboards and organizing drawers with energetic energy. Anything to keep from thinking about the mess I'd made of our lives. In the back of my closet, I found a shoebox full of Jennifer's baby pictures. Pictures no one else in her biological family had ever seen. On day 16, after the disastrous dinner, my doorbell rang. When I opened it, Tyler Harrison stood on my porch, looking like he hadn't slept in days. "Mrs. Wilson," he said formally, "may I come in?" I stepped back, surprised, too surprised to speak. He walked into my living room, taking in the modest furnishings with eyes that had grown up surrounded by antiques and heirlooms. "Ashley won't talk to me," he said without preamble. "She won't answer my calls or texts. I thought maybe you could help." I gestured for him to sit on my faded couch. "I'm not exactly in Ashley's good graces right now either." "But you're her grandmother. She loves you." He ran a hand through his hair, the gesture so reminiscent of Robert that it made my chest ache. "I just need 5 minutes to talk to her, to tell her that nothing's changed for me." "Everything's changed, Tyler," I said gently. "You're her cousin." "First cousin once removed," he corrected automatically, then grimaced. "God, I sound like grandmother." Despite everything, I felt a pang of sympathy for this young man caught in the same web of Harrison's secrets as the rest of us. "Does your father know you're here?" I asked. Tyler nodded. "Dad's been surprisingly understanding. Said he always felt something was off about grandfather. This explained a lot." He looked at me directly. "He wants to meet Jennifer, his sister." The idea of Robert Jr., Bobby, the man who'd broken my daughter's heart, wanting to reconnect with her now, sent a spike of protective anger through me. "I don't think that's a good idea right now," I said stiffly. "Maybe not," Tyler agreed. "But eventually, we're still family, Mrs. Wilson. Messed up, secretive, dysfunctional family, but hopeful family nonetheless." I thought of Jennifer growing up without siblings, always asking for a brother or sister for Christmas, and now she had 3 half-siblings she'd never known about. "What about your grandmother?" I asked. "Caroline's been controlling this narrative for 43 years. Is she ready to let go of it now?" Tyler's expression hardened. "Grandmother is adjusting. Grandfather's health has taken a turn since the dinner. The doctors say the stress triggered another small stroke." I refused to feel guilty about that. Robert had, confident, brought this on himself decades ago. "I'm selling my shares in Harrison Financial," Tyler continued. "Dad thinks I'm crazy, giving up millions, but I can't be part of it anymore. All that wealth built on lies." "What will you do instead?" He shrugged. "I have my law degree. Maybe public defender work." "Something that actually helps people." He leaned forward. "But first, I need to make things right with Ashley. Not to get back together. I understand that's impossible now, but because I care about her. I don't want this to destroy her." I studied Robert's grandson, seeing none of the senior Harrison's calculating coldness in his hopeful, earnest face. Ashley's working at the Starbucks on Riverside Drive in Macon, I said finally. Morning shift ends at 2. Relief flooded his features. Thank you, Mrs. Wilson. As he stood to leave, I remembered something. Wait here. I went to my bedroom and returned with the shoebox of Jennifer's baby pictures. These belong to your father, too, in a way. Jennifer's his sister. He should have them, if he wants. Tyler took the box carefully, like it contained something far more valuable than faded Polaroids. I'll make sure he gets them. After he left, I sat in my silent house, wondering if I'd done the right thing. More secrets, more manipulation, exactly what had gotten us into this mess. My phone rang at 3:30 that afternoon. Ashley's name on the screen, fearful, nearly stopped my heart. Grandma, her voice was ragged, like she'd been crying. Ashley, sweetheart, are you okay? Tyler came to my work, she said, ignoring my question. Did you tell him where to find me? I considered lying, then remembered where lies had gotten us. Yes, a long silence. Then, why? Because he deserves a chance to say goodbye properly. Because despite everything, you two cared about each other. Because confident, 43 years of secrets is enough. More silence. I could hear her breathing, slightly uneven. He's moving to Washington, D.C., she finally said, taking a job with the public defender's office. He mentioned he might do something like that. He said, her voice sad, caught. He said he's sorry about everything, that none of this was my fault. He's right. Is he, though? A bitter edge crept into her voice. If I hadn't gotten engaged to him, if I hadn't insisted on this big wedding at Rosewood, would any of this have come out? Yes, I said confidently. Caroline had decided it was time. If not at your wedding, then sometime soon. She and Robert are getting older. They didn't want to take this to their graves. How generous of them, Ashley said sarcastically. Then, in a smaller voice, Mom's still not talking about it. Dad tries, but she just shuts down. Your mother needs time, I said, echoing Michael's words to me. Finding out Robert Harrison is her biological father, it's a lot to process. Did you ever love him? Ashley asked suddenly. Robert? The question caught me off guard. Had I loved Robert? Or had I just been young and flattered by the attention of a powerful man? I thought I did, I answered, honestly. But looking back, I think I loved the idea of him more than the actual man. The real Robert Harrison was never someone worth loving. Ashley was quiet for a long moment. I can't believe Tyler and I are related, that we almost got married. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. If I'd told the truth years ago... Why didn't you? The sad hurt in her voice cut deeper than anger would have. Why let me fall in love with him, plan a whole future with him, when you knew all along who his family was? I never thought it would go this far, I admitted. When you first mentioned dating a Harrison, I hoped it wouldn't get serious. Then, when you got engaged, I couldn't find the words. How do you tell your granddaughter that her fiancé is her cousin? That her mother doesn't know who her real father is? You find the words, Grandma. You find them before it destroys people's lives. She was right, of course. I should have found the words years ago, decades ago. I know there's nothing I can say to make this better, I said, my voice breaking. But I love you, Ashley, and your mother. Everything I did, the lies, the secrets, it was because I thought I was protecting you both. That's what Tyler's grandmother said too, Ashley replied. Funny how protection looks an awful lot like control. The line went dead before I could respond, but she had called, It was a hopeful start. 20 days after the dinner that imploded two families, Jennifer finally called. "We need to talk," she said, her voice tight. "In person." "Of course," I agreed immediately. "I can drive down tomorrow." "No, not at our house. Neutral ground." She named a coffee shop halfway between Macon and Atlanta. 2 o'clock. "Come alone." The drive to Bean There Cafe the next day felt like heading to my own execution. I arrived 30 minutes early, selecting a table in the back corner where we wouldn't be overheard. Jennifer arrived exactly at 2, sunglasses hiding her eyes even inside the dimly lit cafe. She slid into the chair across from me, removing her sunglasses to reveal red-rimmed eyes. My beautiful daughter looked like she'd aged 5 years in 3 weeks. "You look tired," I said, immediately regretting the words. "Finding out your entire life is a lie will do that to you," she replied flatly. The barista approached, but Jennifer waved her away. This wasn't a social call. "I have questions," she said, pulling a notebook from her purse. "I've been making a list." Of course she had. Jennifer had always been organized, methodical, qualities that made her an excellent elementary school teacher. Qualities she'd inherited from Robert, though I'd never allowed myself to acknowledge that before. "When did it start? With Robert?" Her pen hovered over the page, ready to document my answers like a court stenographer. I told her everything. The late nights at Harrison Financial, the apartment in Midtown, the affair that lasted almost 2 years, how Robert had tried to pay me off when I got pregnant. "He wanted me to get an abortion," I admitted. When I refused, he suggested adoption, said it would be cleaner that way. Jennifer flinched at the word, making a note in her book. "But you kept me." "Of course I kept you. You were my baby." I reached for her hand, but she pulled back. I never regretted that decision, not for 1 second. "But you regretted telling me the truth," she said. "It wasn't a question." I was young and scared. A single mother in 1979 was already stigmatized. A single mother who'd had an affair with her married boss? I would have been a pariah. "So you invented a dead husband." William agreed to let me use his name. He was my cousin, but he understood. He'd moved to Seattle by then, so no one in Macon knew him. Jennifer made another note. "Did anyone else know the truth, besides you and Robert and apparently Caroline?" My mother suspected, I think, but she never asked directly, and I never told her. The questioning continued for over an hour. Jennifer documenting each answer with the precision of a historian, preserving a questionable account for future scrutiny. She wanted dates, times, exact conversations, details buried under 43 years of selective memory. "When Bobby and I started dating," she said, her voice catching slightly on his name, "did you recognize him immediately?" "Yes, he looks just like Robert did at that age." "And instead of telling me the truth, you went behind my back to his father, our father," she corrected bitterly. I panicked, "Jennifer, you have to understand." "I don't have to understand anything," she snapped. "You let me believe Bobby dumped me because there was something wrong with me. Do you know how many years I carried that? How it affected every relationship after him, including with Michael?" The pain in her voice cut me to the bone. "I thought I was sparing you from a worse truth." "That wasn't your decision to make!" Her voice angry rose, causing heads to turn at nearby tables. She lowered it again with visible effort. "You decided what truth I could handle. You and Robert and Caroline playing God with people's lives." "I'm so sorry, Jennifer," I whispered, tears threatening. "Sorry doesn't change the fact that I grew up without a father because of your choices. That my daughter almost married her cousin because of your secrets." I had no defense against the sad truth of her words. "Have you spoken to him?" I asked cautiously. "Robert?" Jennifer's jaw, serious, tightened. "He's called every day since the dinner, left messages about wanting to, sarcastic, as if that's possible now." "And have you called him back?" "Why would I? He's a stranger who happens to share my DNA. That doesn't make him my father." "His son, Bobby, wants to meet you," I said carefully. Jennifer's pen paused over her notebook. "I know, he called last week." This surprised me, and I hung up on him. She closed the notebook with a confident snap. I'm not ready for Harrison family reunions. I might never be. "That's your right," I agreed. "But they are your biological family, Jennifer. 3 half-siblings, nieces, nephews?" "I have a family," she said confidently, firmly. "Michael, Ashley, you." She hesitated on the last word, making it clear my position wasn't entirely secure. We sat in silence for a long moment, the weight of decades pressing down between us. "Ashley told me Tyler's moving to DC, Jennifer finally said, changing the subject slightly. "Yes, he wants a fresh start away from the Harrison name." "Smart kid." She twisted her wedding ring, the modest diamond Michael had saved 6 months to buy, nothing like the 3-carat rock Tyler had given Ashley. "The wedding planner called yesterday, wanted to know if we still needed the deposit refund, since the Harrisons had covered everything." "What did you tell her?" "That I'd get back to her." Jennifer looked out the window, her profile so like mine at that age, it made my chest ache. "Robert offered to pay for Ashley to finish her master's degree, full tuition at any school she wants." "That's generous," I said carefully. "It's guilt money," Jennifer corrected, "just like the check he tried to give you when I was born." "What did Ashley say?" "She told him to donate it to a charity for children of unwed mothers instead." A proud ghost of a smile touched Jennifer's lips. "She's tougher than both of us, Mom." Mom. The word gave me a hopeful flicker of hope. "Are you going to be okay?" I asked gently. Jennifer gathered her purse and notebook, preparing to leave. "Eventually, but things won't ever be the same. You understand that, right?" I nodded, my throat sad, too tight for words. "Michael says I should try to forgive you," she continued. "Says holding on to anger only hurts me in the long run." "Michael's a wise man." "He is. It's why I married him." She stood, then hesitated.
"Bobby, Robert Jr., he's giving a talk at Emory Business School next month about ethical leadership in finance, if you can believe the sarcastic irony." "Are you going to go?" She shrugged, but the casual gesture seemed forced. "Maybe, just to see. I'm not ready to talk to him yet, but maybe I could just observe from the back row, see what my biological brother is like." It was more openness than I'd expected. Hopeful, that sounds like a good first step. "Don't get excited," she warned. "I'm still furious with all of you, but," she sighed heavily, "confident. 43 years of lies is enough. Ashley deserves to know her real family tree, even if it's twisted and diseased." As I watched her walk away, I realized Jennifer had her father's commanding presence, his squared shoulders when facing adversity. But she had my heart, bigger and more forgiving than either Robert or I deserved. Chapter 8: The Reconciliation. Autumn settled over Georgia, painting the landscape in fiery reds and golds. A month passed, then 2. The wedding date came and went without celebration. Ashley returned to Emory to finish her master's program in educational psychology. Jennifer gradually began returning my calls, our conversations stiff but civil.
Robert's health continued to decline. According to the Atlanta business pages, he had officially stepped down from all involvement with Harrison Financial Group, transferring his remaining shares to his children. Caroline maintained her social calendar as if nothing had changed, though several eagle-eyed Atlanta Society columnists noted her absence from key charity events that season. I kept to myself in Macon, tending my garden and volunteering at the local library. The quiet routine helped calm my nerves as I waited for my family to either forgive me or cut me off completely. On a crisp October morning, my doorbell rang unexpectedly. When I opened it, Jennifer stood on my porch, a cardboard box in her arms. "Mom," she said, her voice carefully neutral, "can I come in?" I stepped aside, heart hammering. She placed the box on my coffee table and sat on the couch, her posture rigid. "I found these while cleaning out the attic," she explained, gesturing to the box. "I thought you might want them." Inside were photo albums and school projects, mementos from Jennifer's childhood that she'd stored away years ago. "Ashley's been seeing a therapist," she said abruptly, watching me page through a 6th grade science report on the solar system. "It's helping her process everything." "That's good," I said cautiously. "How is she doing otherwise?" "Better. She's focusing on school. Applied for an internship with the Atlanta public school system for next semester." Jennifer twisted her wedding ring, a nervous habit she'd had since Michael proposed. "She saw Tyler last weekend." My head snapped up. "She did?" "He came to Atlanta for a conference. They had coffee." She shrugged. "Just as cousins, obviously. But it was civilized." "Progress," I thought, but didn't say. "I went to Bobby's lecture at Emory," Jennifer continued, her voice carefully controlled. "Sat in the back like I said I might. He looks like me around the eyes. Or I look like him, I guess. Did you speak to him afterward?" She shook her head. "I wasn't ready, but I will be, eventually." She reached into her purse and pulled out a business card. "He left this with Ashley, said I could call when I felt up to it." The card was simple. Expensive stock with raised lettering. Robert Harrison Jr., Managing Director, Harrison Financial Group, West Coast Division. "Michael thinks I should meet him for Thanksgiving," Jennifer said. "Not the whole Harrison clan, just Bobby and his wife. Neutral territory." "That sounds like a good idea," I said, trying to keep my voice steady despite the surge of hope in my chest. "If you're ready." "I don't know if I'll ever be ready," she admitted. "But I'm 46 years old, too old to keep hiding from the truth." She looked at me directly. "Which is why I'm here. We need to finish our conversation." I nodded, preparing myself for more painful questions about the past. Instead, Jennifer said, "Robert is dying." The sad statement hung in the air between us. "Caroline called yesterday," she continued. "The doctors give him 3 months, maybe less. Complications from the strokes, plus heart failure." "I'm sorry," I said automatically, though I wasn't sure if I meant it. "He's asking to see me and Ashley," Jennifer's voice, sad, wavered slightly. "Before it's too late. What do you want to do?" She shook her head, suddenly looking lost. "I don't know, Mom. Part of me wants to tell him to go to hell, that he lost the right to a deathbed reconciliation when he abandoned us. But another part wants answers," I finished for her. "Wants to hear his side before it's too late." Yes, a single tear slid down her cheek. Is that stupid? After everything he did? I moved to sit beside her, tentatively taking her hand. This time, she, hopeful, didn't pull away. "It's not stupid, Jennifer. He is your biological father, regardless of how terribly he behaved. It's natural to want some kind of closure. "Would you come with me?" she asked, her voice small. "If I decide to go?"
The request caught me off guard. "Of course, if that's what you want." "I do," she, hopeful, squeezed my hand. "I'm still angry at you, Mom. That doesn't just disappear. But you're my mother, the only parent who was actually there for me, and I need you for this." Tears filled my eyes. "I'll be there, whatever you decide." We sat together on my faded couch, the box of childhood memories between us, a hopeful, fragile bridge beginning to form across the chasm of hurt and betrayal. "Ashley wants to come too," Jennifer said after a while, "if I go to see Robert. She says she wants to understand where she comes from." "She's a proud, remarkable young woman," I said. "You raised her well." A small, happy smile touched Jennifer's lips. We did our best, though I'm pretty sure the whole "don't marry your cousins" conversation got skipped somehow. The unexpected humor broke the tension. We both laughed, the sound rusty but healing. "Has Michael met any of the Harrisons yet?" I asked. "Just Tyler, briefly. He likes him, says he seems like a decent kid despite the silver spoon." Jennifer shook her head fondly. "Michael wants to punch Robert in the face, though, says a real man doesn't abandon his child." "Michael's right about that." "He usually is." Jennifer's expression grew serious again. "If I go see Robert, I'm not going for forgiveness. I need to be clear about that. I'm going for answers." "That's fair." "And I need you to promise me something, Mom. No more secrets. Not ever. Even when the truth is ugly or painful or complicated." "I promise," I said immediately. "No more secrets." Jennifer nodded, calm, satisfied for now. As she prepared to leave, she paused at the door. "Thanksgiving at our house this year," she said, not quite a question. 2 o'clock. Ashley will be home from school. Michael's smoking a turkey." The invitation, so casually delivered, felt like absolution. "I'll bring my sweet potato casserole," I offered, trying to keep my voice steady. "With the marshmallows on top? Is there any other way?" Jennifer's smile was small but genuine. "See you then, Mom." As I watched her drive away, I realized that forgiveness wasn't a single moment, but a process, messy and nonlinear and ongoing. My daughter was offering me a hopeful path back into her life, one careful step at a time. And Robert? He was facing the ultimate reckoning. Whether Jennifer decided to see him or not, his time for making amends was running out. Some secrets, it seemed, wouldn't stay buried forever, not even in the most carefully tended Harrison family plot. Thanksgiving came and went with cautious normalcy. Jennifer, Michael, and Ashley welcomed me into their home. We ate too much, watched football, and carefully avoided mentioning the Harrisons. It was a temporary truce, the calm before an inevitable storm. A week later, Jennifer called. "I've decided to see him," she said without preamble. "This Friday. Ashley's coming with me." "Are you sure?" I asked. "No," she admitted, "but he doesn't have much time left, according to Caroline. If I'm going to do this, it has to be now." The Harrison mansion looked different in winter. The manicured gardens dormant, bare branches reaching toward a steel gray sky. Caroline met us at the door, her perfect posture and designer outfit unchanged, despite the family upheaval. "Thank you for coming," she said formally, as if we were attending a regular social call rather than a deathbed confrontation. "Robert is in his study. The nurse is with him, but she'll step out when you arrive." She led us through the house, Jennifer walking nervously ahead, Ashley behind her, and me bringing up the rear like a sad, reluctant caboose on a train wreck. The study had been converted into a makeshift hospital room. A hospital bed replaced Robert's imposing desk. Medical equipment beeped softly in the corner.
The bookshelves still held leather-bound first editions and family photographs, an incongruous backdrop to the scene of illness. Robert lay propped against pillows, his once powerful frame diminished to almost nothing. Oxygen tubes ran from his nose to a tank beside the bed. His skin had a grayish tinge that I recognized from my own father's final days, the melancholy shadow of approaching death. The nurse, a sturdy woman in scrubs with a no-nonsense expression, checked Robert's vitals one last time before nodding to Caroline and leaving the room. An uncomfortable silence filled the space she left. Robert's eyes, still sharp despite his failing body, moved from Jennifer to Ashley and finally to me. A wheeze that might have been a laugh escaped him. "My girls," he said, his voice a papery whisper. "All 3 generations." Jennifer stiffened beside me. Angry. "We're not your girls, Robert. We never were." He nodded weakly, accepting the rebuke. "Sit, please." We arranged ourselves awkwardly on chairs Caroline had placed near the bed. No one seemed to know how to begin this impossible conversation. Finally, Robert spoke again. "I've rehearsed this moment for weeks." What I would say if you came. The perfect words to make 43 years of absence somehow acceptable. He shook his head slightly. There are no perfect words. "No," Jennifer agreed coldly. "There aren't." "I was a coward," Robert continued. "When Mary told me she was pregnant, I saw my life's carefully constructed facade crumbling. My reputation, my marriage, my position in Atlanta society, all of it threatened by this unborn child." "Me," Jennifer said, "not this unborn child, me." "You," Robert agreed, "my daughter." He shifted slightly, wincing with the effort. "I told myself I was being practical, that a clean break was best for everyone, that the money I gave your mother would provide for you both." "Except she didn't take your money," Ashley interjected. "She raised Mom on her own, working multiple jobs, while you were here in your mansion, collecting more millions." Robert's gaze shifted to his great-granddaughter. "You have Caroline's directness," he observed. "She always cuts straight to the heart of things, too." "Don't compare me to her," Ashley said sharply. Fair enough. Robert's breathing became more labored. Caroline silently adjusted his oxygen, her movements practiced and efficient. "The truth is, I convinced myself I was being noble, that staying away was a sacrifice I was making for my existing family, but it was always selfishness, not nobility." "Did you ever think about me?" Jennifer asked suddenly. "Over the years, did you wonder what I was like, what I was doing?" Something flickered across Robert's gaunt face, pain that wasn't physical. "Every day," he whispered. "Caroline kept tabs on you, showed me photos sometimes. I knew when you graduated high school, when you got married, when Ashley was born." "You were stalking us?" Ashley looked disgusted, horrified. "Monitoring," Caroline corrected from her position by the window. "There's a difference." "Not to us there isn't," I said, unable to remain silent any longer. Robert raised a trembling hand. "I deserved that. I deserved all of it. The anger, the accusations." His eyes fixed on Jennifer. "What I don't deserve is your forgiveness, but I'm asking for it anyway. Not for my sake, it's too late for that, but for yours." Jennifer stood abruptly, angry. "You don't get to tell me what I need for closure, Robert. You forfeited that right 43 years ago." "Jennifer," Caroline began, but Robert waved her off. "She's right, Caroline." He shifted his gaze back to Jennifer. "I have no right to ask anything of you, but I do have something to offer, if you'll accept it." He nodded weakly toward a leather portfolio on the bedside table. Caroline handed it to him, and with shaking hands, he extracted a document. "My will," he explained. "I've amended it to include you, Jennifer, and you, Ashley, equal shares with my other children and grandchildren." Jennifer stared at the document, then at Robert. "You think you can buy my forgiveness? That money makes up for 4 decades of absence?" "No," Robert said simply. "Nothing makes up for that. The money isn't atonement. It's acknowledgement. Public recognition that you are my daughter, entitled to the same inheritance as your siblings." "I don't want your money," Jennifer said, but I could hear the uncertainty in her voice. "Then donate it," Robert suggested. "Fund scholarships, build libraries, but don't reject it out of hand to punish me. I'll be dead. The only one punished will be you." A harsh but undeniable logic. I watched my daughter wrestling with it, her practical nature at war with her angry, righteous anger. "There's something else," Caroline said, stepping forward. From her designer handbag, she withdrew a thumb drive. "Recordings. Robert has spent the last month documenting everything: how we met, our marriage, the affair with Mary, his regrets about abandoning you. He wanted to leave you his story, in his own words." "Why?" Ashley asked, looking between the dying man and his steel magnolia wife. "Why now, when it's too late to change anything?" "Because the truth matters," Robert said simply. "Even painful truth, even too late truth." The words hung in the air, a challenge and an offer. Jennifer stared at the thumb drive in Caroline's manicured hand. "I can't promise I'll ever listen to it," she said finally. "That's your choice," Robert acknowledged, "but it's yours to make now. The secrets are over." A subtle shift occurred in the room. Not forgiveness exactly, but perhaps the first step towards something like understanding. Jennifer took the thumb drive, slipping it into her purse without comment. "Your half-brother Bobby is coming tomorrow," Caroline said, changing the subject slightly. "He'd very much like to meet you, if you're willing." Jennifer exchanged a glance with Ashley, some unspoken communication passing between mother and daughter. "Maybe," Jennifer said. "I'm not making any promises." Robert's thin hand reached toward her, trembling with the effort. After a moment's hesitation, Jennifer allowed him to take her fingers in his fragile grip. "You grew into an extraordinary woman," he said, his voice barely audible now. "Without any help from me. I'm proud of you, Jennifer. I have no right to be, but I am." A single tear slipped down Jennifer's cheek. "I didn't come here for this," she said, her voice tight. "I know," Robert acknowledged. "You came for answers, for closure. Did you get what you needed?" Jennifer withdrew her hand gently. "I don't know yet. Maybe I never will." It wasn't forgiveness, it wasn't reconciliation, but it was something, a kind of hopeful peace offering across a chasm too wide to ever fully bridge. In that moment, watching my daughter face her biological father for the first and likely last time, I realized that some wounds never completely heal. They just become part of who we are, scars that tell the story of where we've been. As we prepared to leave, Caroline walked us to the door. "He has weeks at most," she said quietly. "If you want to meet Bobby, don't wait too long." Jennifer nodded, not committing, but not refusing either. Progress of a sort. In the car, driving back to Macon, Ashley broke the silence. "Do you think you'll go back? To meet your brother?" Jennifer stared out the window at the winter bare Georgia landscape. "I think I might," she said finally. "Not for Robert, for me." I reached over and squeezed her hand. This time, she squeezed back. Robert Harrison died on a cold January morning, 16 days after our visit. The obituary in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution listed his survivors: his devoted wife, Caroline, Children Robert Jr., Elizabeth, and William, daughter Jennifer Taylor, née Cooper, 8 grandchildren, and 1 great-grandchild. The proud acknowledgement Jennifer had never asked for, but somehow needed. The funeral was held at the First Presbyterian Church of Atlanta, the same church where Ashley and Tyler would have been married. Jennifer decided to attend, bringing Michael and Ashley with her. I stayed home in Macon at her request. This was her moment to face the Harrison family as one of their own. It was surprised, she told me later by phone. All these people offering condolences, introducing themselves as my cousins, my nieces, my nephews, an entire family tree I never knew existed suddenly grafted onto mine. And Bobby? I asked cautiously. He looks like me, she said, surprised in her voice. Same eyes, same laugh. He has 2 kids in college, my niece and nephew. They want to meet for dinner next week. Are you going to go? Yes, she said with confident firmness. It's time to stop hiding from who I am, who we are. The Harrison will made headlines in the business pages. Financial titan leaves fortune to previously unknown daughter. Jennifer's share, $57 million after taxes, was enough to change her life completely, though she insisted it wouldn't. "We're staying in our house," she told me over coffee in my kitchen a month after the funeral. "Michael's keeping his construction business. I'm still teaching 4th grade. The money goes in a trust for good causes, not for changing who we are." I nodded, proud of her grounded perspective, despite the seismic shift in her circumstances. "Ashley's a different story," Jennifer continued with a happy smile. "She's deferring her final semester, taking a gap year to travel. Says she needs to, hopeful, find herself outside of all this family drama." "That sounds healthy," I agreed. "She's meeting Tyler in Washington, D.C. next month," Jennifer added, casually. "Just as friends, of course. He's showing her around, introducing her to people at the public defender's office. She's thinking of law school now." "The Harrisons do have legal minds," I observed. "It might be in her blood." Jennifer's smile faded slightly. "Sad. That's the strange part. Discovering these traits, these tendencies that come from Robert. The way Ashley organizes her notes for school, pure Harrison. My analytical approach to problems, also Robert. It's disconcerting to realize how much of him lives in us despite his absence." "Genes are powerful," I acknowledged, "but so is nurture. You and Ashley became who you are because of your choices, not just your DNA." "I know," Jennifer reached for my hand across the table. "And because of you, Mom. Despite everything, the secrets, the lies, you raised me with love. That counts for something. For everything, really." I blinked back tears. "Thank you for saying that." "I've been listening to Robert's recordings," she admitted, "the ones Caroline gave me." This surprised me. What does he say? "A lot about regret, about watching my life from a distance, about the day he realized Bobby was dating his own half-sister and the panic he felt." She shook her head. "He was a complicated man. Not entirely monstrous, not remotely heroic, just flawed, human. Like all of us," I said gently. "Some more than others." Jennifer squeezed my hand. "I've been thinking about Ashley's wedding, the one that never happened." "What about it?" "If I hadn't canceled it, if you hadn't spoken up at that dinner, Ashley and Tyler would be married now. Cousins, unknowingly bound by blood as well as law." The thought made me shudder. "But we did speak up. The truth came out." "Yes," Jennifer agreed. 43 years late, but it came out." She met my eyes directly. "I'm still working on forgiveness, Mom. For you, for Robert, for Caroline. For all the adults who thought they knew better than to tell me the truth. I understand, I said. Take all the time you need. But I'm getting there, she continued, especially with you. You made a terrible mistake, but you were young and scared. And unlike Robert, you were there every day of my life. That matters. It was more than I deserved, and we both knew it. As spring returned to Georgia, Ashley came home from her travels with a confident glow of confidence and purpose. She'd been accepted to Georgetown Law School for the fall. No Harrison money necessary thanks to her scholarship. Tyler's been an amazing guide, she told us over dinner. Introduced me to professors, showed me around DC. We're actually, hopefully, friends now. Real friends. That's wonderful, sweetheart, Jennifer said cautiously. It's weird, Ashley admitted, knowing we almost got married, that we're related. But we're finding a hopeful, new kind of relationship. Family, but not the way we planned. Family is complicated, I observed, as we've all learned. Ashley nodded, then reached into her bag. Which reminds me, I have something for you, Grandma. She handed me an envelope. Inside was an invitation. The Taylor family requests the honor of your presence at the renewal of wedding vows for Jennifer Cooper Taylor and Michael James Taylor on the occasion of their 10th anniversary. The date was set for June, exactly when Ashley and Tyler's wedding would have been. The location? The garden behind Jennifer and Michael's home in Macon. No Rosewood Country Club, Ashley explained with a playful grin. No Harrison money, just family celebrating love that's real and true. Tears filled my eyes. It's perfect. And this time, Jennifer said, her voice teasing but with an edge of seriousness. Serious, no family secrets allowed. No secrets, I promised, not ever again. As I drove home that evening, I thought about the wedding that never was and the one that would be. How truth, however painful, had ultimately set us all free. Robert Harrison had spent a lifetime building walls of deception only to leave a legacy of shattered illusions. But from those fragments, something new and genuine was forming, a family bound not by secrets, but by truth. At my granddaughter's almost wedding, I had whispered a truth that changed everything. At my daughter's vow renewal, I would stand proudly in the knowledge that every person there knew exactly who they were to each other. The tangled branches of our family tree finally exposed to sunlight, growing stronger for the revelation. The June day dawned, clear and perfect, not too hot for Georgia this time of year, with a gentle breeze stirring the magnolia blossoms in Jennifer and Michael's backyard. White folding chairs formed neat rows on the lawn. A gentle, simple arch of local wildflowers marked where the couple would renew their vows. No 7-tier cake, no string quartet from Juilliard, no $3,000 flower arrangements, just homemade food, a playlist of Michael and Jennifer's favorite songs, and family, the real kind, bound by both blood and choice. I helped Jennifer with her dress, not a designer gown, but a simple white sundress that made her look radiant. You know what I was thinking about this morning? She asked as I fastened her pearl necklace, my mother's, handed down through generations. What's that? If you hadn't spoken up that day at Rosewood, if the truth had stayed buried, Ashley would be married to Tyler now. They'd be starting a life together, never knowing they shared the same blood. I shuddered at the thought, but the truth came out, finally. Yes, Jennifer agreed, turning to face me. And as painful as it was also freeing. No more secrets, no more lies, just the messy, complicated truth of who we are. From downstairs came the sound of laughter, Ashley greeting guests in the living room. Through the open window, I could see Bobby, Robert Jr., arriving with his wife and children. Jennifer's half-siblings, Elizabeth and William, were already there, nervous, somewhat awkward, but making an effort. Caroline had declined the invitation, citing health concerns, though we all suspected the real reason was discomfort at this very different kind of family gathering. Old Atlanta society mixing with Macon middle class, not her idea of a proper celebration. "Ready?" I asked, as Jennifer took a final look in the mirror. "More than ready," she replied with confident certainty. "This time, we're celebrating something real." As we descended the stairs, Ashley met us at the bottom, beautiful in a simple blue dress. "Tyler's here," she said, a hint of nervousness in her voice. "Is that okay? I invited him as my friend." Jennifer squeezed her daughter's hand. "Of course it's okay. He's family too, in his own way." The ceremony was hopeful and heartfelt. Michael, solid and steady as always, sad, teared up as he repeated his vows to Jennifer. Their decade together, through financial struggles, parenting challenges, and the recent Harrison revelation, had only romantically strengthened their bond. "When I married you," Michael said, his voice carrying across the small gathering, "I promised to stand by you through whatever life threw our way. I had no idea what that would include." A playful ripple of knowing laughter moved through the crowd. "But I've never regretted a single day with you, Jennifer Taylor, not one." At the reception afterward, I found myself sitting beside Bobby, my daughter's half-brother, Robert's legitimate son, the man who had unknowingly dated his own sister all those years ago. "This is surprised," he admitted, nursing a glass of bourbon that would have met his father's approval. "If you'd told me a year ago I'd be at a family gathering with my secret half-sister?" "Life takes unexpected turns," I agreed. He studied me over the rim of his glass. "You know, I never understood why Dad was so insistent I take that California position back in college. He sold it as a huge opportunity, but it felt forced." "He was protecting you both," I said, in his own misguided way. "From the truth," Bobby shook his head. "The great Harrison family tradition. Bury anything unpleasant under enough money and power and pretend it doesn't exist." Across the garden, Jennifer was happy with Elizabeth, the half-sister she'd never known until Robert's death. They had the same smile, I noticed with a pang. "She's remarkable," Bobby said, following my gaze. "Jennifer, to have gone through all this and still be so gracious." "She takes after her father in some ways," I said. "The good ways, the strength, the intelligence, but her heart, that's all her own." Bobby raised his glass slightly. "To Jennifer, the best of the Harrisons, without ever being one." I clinked my glass against his. "I'll drink to that." Later, as twilight softened the edges of the garden, I found Ashley and Tyler sitting together on the porch swing, a careful distance between them as they talked quietly. "Grandma," Ashley called, patting the space behind her, "join us. We were just talking about Georgetown." I settled next to my granddaughter, noting how Tyler respectfully shifted to maintain appropriate space. "I've been helping Ashley find an apartment near campus," he explained. "The Harrison name still opens a few doors in DC. Might as well use it for hopeful." "He knows all the best restaurants too," Ashley added, "places where law students can actually afford to eat." "That's very kind," I said, studying Robert's grandson, this young man who had almost been my granddaughter's husband and was now finding his way to being her cousin and friend instead. "It's the least I can do," Tyler said simply, "after everything." "Thank grateful." Ashley leaned her head against my shoulder, the gesture so reminiscent of her childhood it made my heart ache. "You know what's funny, Grandma? If you hadn't said anything that day at Rosewood, Tyler and I would be married now." "There's nothing funny about that,"
I said seriously.
No, she agreed, but there is something, I don't know, meaningful about how the truth finally came out, how it changed everything, but also set us free. Tyler nodded. I think about that a lot, how close we came to living a lie without ever knowing it. But we didn't, Ashley said firmly, because Grandma finally spoke up. I thought about that moment, standing in the Rosewood Country Club, watching my granddaughter walk down the aisle toward a future built on generations of secrets. The words that had escaped me then, changing everything. I should have spoken sooner, I admitted. Decades sooner. But you did speak, Ashley said, squeezing my hand, when it mattered most. As night fell fully, fairy lights twinkled in the trees around Jennifer and Michael's garden. The renewed couple swayed together on the makeshift, hopeful, unconventional family, Taylors and Harrisons and Coopers bound together by hopeful truth at last. Watching them, I thought about how secrets can poison across generations, how Robert's deception had almost led to his granddaughter marrying her cousin, how my silence had compounded the damage, how Caroline's cold calculation had controlled lives not her own. But I also thought about healing, how Jennifer was cautiously building relationships with her half-siblings, how Ashley and Tyler had found a different kind of connection, authentic and honest. How Michael had accepted this strange extended family with his characteristic steadiness. May I have this dance, Mary? Bobby stood before me, hand extended, Robert's son, Jennifer's brother, offering an hopeful olive branch across 4 decades of separation. As we moved awkwardly around the dance floor, I caught Jennifer's eye over Bobby's shoulder. She smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes, and mouthed 2 words, "Thank you." Not for the secrets, not for the years of deception, but for finally speaking the truth, however belatedly, for giving her the chance to know her real family, complicated and messy as it was. The truth had come too late for Robert to make proper amends, too late for the decades lost between siblings who never knew each other existed, too late for Jennifer to have the father she deserved. But not too late to stop history from repeating its cruelest mistake. Not too late to give Ashley and Tyler the chance to find their rightful places in each other's lives. Not too late for healing to begin, however imperfectly. At my granddaughter's almost wedding, I had finally found the courage to speak the truth that had festered in silence for 43 years. The words had shattered 2 families, exposed decades of lies, and caused immeasurable pain. But from those broken pieces, something authentic had emerged. A family defined not by secrets, but by truth. Not by appearances, but by reality. Not by what others might think, but by what actually was. As the night wrapped around us like a gentle embrace, I watched Jennifer and Michael cut their anniversary cake. Ashley and Tyler laughed together by the punch bowl, cousins now comfortable in their true relationship. Bobby's children, Jennifer's niece and nephew, played tag around the garden with Michael's brother's kids. Family. Messy, complicated, beautiful family, built on truth at last.